So let's take a moment to take a step away from the Rugby Championship, from the Southern Hemisphere, and talk about a big announcement in England, the RFU looking to get more control over their stars. The headline is the £264 million deal, talking about this article in the BBC, and I'm going to give my thoughts on it. Now, I think England are playing a bit of catch-up here. They've realised that their system is antiquated, and systems like Ireland, South Africa, like France, they're churning out more and more players more consistently than England should be doing for the size that it is. So can they wake up the sleeping giant? That is the challenge of the RFU. They haven't gone all in with the central contracts. They're kind of half and half, but it should help. So it's an 8-year deal where up to 25 England players could be given an enhanced contract. Now I've just come up with a list on the side of maybe the 25 you'd go with if you were to max it out. I'm not really going heavy on that, but have a look, let me know what you think for fun. But the big one here is they have the final say on all sports science and medical matters. Now that is big, and we're going to come back to it. Now each of these up to 25 players are going to be given a training program basically helping them to peak for England, not for their clubs. So that's a big one. They haven't gone all in, like I said, on the central contract, which would say when they play and kind of have a say in who goes to which club. It's not that. That would cost far too much and just be too much for the RFU to take on. So they've gone for this halfway house, and they've gone for the medical and the conditioning side of it, where they get a big say, and if they want it, a final say. Now, Rob Baxter is kind of the elder statesman of directors of rugby in the Premiership, and he's kind of stuck his head up and said, well, hang on, there could be a problem, and have had discussions. He says he's feeling better about it, but basically there's going to be no problem until there's a massive problem, and that's when there's a conflict of interest, which absolutely is going to happen at some point, where the RFU put their foot down and say, no, ex-player Marcus Smith say, he's not playing because he's not medically fit, and we need him to peak for the England game in a couple of weeks' time. Or ex-player needs to have an operation now so they can recover in time for the Six Nations, the World Cup. And if it was up to a club, they'd say, well, no, this player can play the last couple of games of the Premiership season, maybe get us into the finals, and then they can have the operation. That sort of thing. Or maybe this player's got a niggle and we think they are medically unfit to play. They put their foot down and then the clubs can't play them, and maybe they would have played and had rehab after. That is what I think Rob Baxter is getting at, and it's going to happen at some point. It just is, no matter how much they say we're going to work together, we're going to liaise. At the end of the day, if England are paying out this money for the final say, they're going to use it at some point, because you're not going to shell out all that money and not have the final say, and that's just business sense, to be honest. And Baxter again spoke up for the clubs and said, well, I kind of feel like we're being taken advantage of because financially we're in a bad position after COVID and we're being taken advantage of, and yeah, I'm sure it is. That's business, it's hard-nosed. The RFU has said this is the time to strike. They're going to agree because they need the money, and we get more control over our players that we wouldn't have got at better times, maybe. The next bit of the announcement is really interesting. It's the formation of a new professional game partnership with the Professional Rugby Board being formed up of new parts. Wayne Barnes is appointed. There's going to be other independent members. There's going to be members from the Rugby Players Association as well. So they're all going to have a say on what goes on. And the idea is they rejuvenate the player pathway with more players in the under-20 squad. So big old squads of under-20, so they can expose more and more players to that international scene. And it's a good point, because when you look back at under-20 squads and you just look at the numbers that have made it from an England team into just the Premiership, starting Premiership player, and into England, it's actually not that many. Whereas a system like Ireland, if you're playing for Ireland under-20s, the chances of you making it all the way through to Ireland are a lot better. They're going to redefine the academy boundary, so that's going to be interesting to see who gets more or less players. Are they going to be taking some away from the Harlequins catchment? Is it just going to be on size? Is it going to be on numbers, population, or is it going to be on how many rugby players are in that area and how well off an area is and that sort of thing? That's going to be really interesting to see. And also confirmation of a two-leg playoff between the top of the Championship and the bottom of the Premiership. That's going to be super exciting. Yes, 2 legs, home and away. That's the way to decide who is the best side. But straight away I'm thinking, if a Premiership side is clearly going to be relegated, they rest all their players for those playoffs. And if a Championship side is clearly going to be at the top, they're going to rest all their players. If they're not, it's going to be a kind of a case of last man standing sort of thing. But it's going to be very exciting. unless they don't meet the minimum standard criteria, which was always a sticking point because I think there was only one that was really meeting that. I think it was Doncaster, and they were in 5th last time. So, Ealing Trailfinders, the ones that are blazing the way at the moment, couldn't have gone up because their ground's not big enough and probably other things, but it does say that there's more flexibility there. So let's say it's clear that Ealing Trailfinders have the finances to stay in the Premiership and survive, but their ground isn't up to scratch. Maybe they can come up with some sort of compromise. I don't know. Anyway, in essence, I think it's a good thing. Have the RFU been quite ruthless here? Yes, they have. They've gone in when the clubs are at their weakest and they've said, let's take control of some players. I know we can't get full control, but this is the best chance we're going to get. At the moment, it's probably going to be all nice and happy and everyone's going to collaborate nicely. But as soon as there's a clash between we want a player to play for England and we want a player to rest for the club and vice versa, then it's going to get ugly. I'm sure it's going to happen. Who would the 25 players be on an enhanced contract? I've made a little guess to the side. Let me know what yours would be. Comments below, and I'll catch you next time.